Sending an invite out there to our friends that are worshiping with us online. If you want a little Jesus, let me know. Put a comment in there and we'll make sure you get one. So, yes. So we're going to continue on with our series on purpose. And I really would like to encourage you to start thinking about your own purpose. And if you're struggling with that, wondering, what is my purpose? Then my hope is that through today, you'll start to discover how God can uniquely use you. And consider your gifts that you have and how they can serve others, maybe in ways we never expected. So in saying that, what does this gospel from Matthew have to do with defining purpose? I have to say, though, that Jesus really explains it well. He explains it well in this teaching by using two items that were found in every home in the first century: salt and light. I'd say that's kind of common for us in today's time, right? Because many of us have salt in our cupboards and we use light. So let's start breaking this apart a little bit. And I'm going to start with salt. You see, in the ancient world, salt was a preservative. It prevented decay and corruption. And spiritually, this suggests that the believers are to stand against moral and spiritual decay, especially in society, preserving the values and trust and truths to God's kingdom. Salt enhances the flavor of food. And in a similar way, believers are being called out the flavor in their life. We're supposed to bring and add meaning, joy, love to interactions that we may have. Such places like workplaces, such places like within our communities, or even among our friends. And our purpose, therefore, is to make the world a better place by living out Christian values and demonstrating God's love. Now let's look at the other half, light. See, believers are called to be a source of wisdom, truth, and guidance in a world that is so often confused, so often lost. And your purpose might involve guiding others toward faith and understanding, or maybe even helping to navigate life's challenges. A light is meant to be seen, not hidden. And this speaks to a public nature of our faith. You see, our purpose is not just personal, but also communal. And that means to influence and inspire others. And we're not fulfilling our purpose, though, when we hide our gifts. And everyone, because many people say, well, I don't have that, but everyone has a unique role to play in God's plan. So have you ever taken time to reflect on your gifts, your passions, or even opportunities that may come about? Some of you approached me last week, and I loved it, telling me that you're just trying to figure out what my passion is. What's my purpose now that I'm in this time of my life? What's my purpose now that I'm going to be doing X, Y, Z? What's my purpose? So let me offer some tips for you to maybe help you find your way, to maybe give you some answers to those questions. So I say start by reflecting on spiritual gifts that God's given you. And these gifts might include teaching, maybe encouragement, leadership, hospitality, or some other kind of service. You see, beyond spiritual gifts, think about the natural talents you may have. What are abilities that you may have? Are you a good communicator? Are you a skilled organizer? Or maybe, are you a great listener? See, these talents are also tools God has given you to make a difference. So ask yourself, what comes naturally to me? What do others often ask me to help with? What activities make me feel energized and fulfilled? And that's a big one, being fulfilled. You see, when I started working at a resort on Clearwater Beach, the human resource person told me that I seem like a people person. So I would be a perfect server. That's what she said. But let me tell you, I was terrible. I was awful. I was probably the worst server that hotel ever had in their restaurant. I was okay at serving coffee. I could do that pretty well. But honestly, I didn't know how to open a bottle of wine. I had no idea how to do it. So I would tell customers that would order bottles of wine that we just didn't have that type of wine that evening. But if they wanted a glass, I would more than happy get them a glass. No one ever really grumbled about it. No one ever said anything about it, but they had to have been thinking, if I could get a glass, there has to be a bottle somewhere, right? Right? I mean, that's it. They just did it. But it's just what happened. And then there was tableside. It was back in the day when preparing the Caesar salads at the table was like the great thing to do, the cool thing to do. Well, not with me. It ended up on the floor. It ended up on the customers. It was just a mess. It was a mess. And I have to be honest, I hated that job. But I did it. I went in every day. And there were others that were so experienced, and they were more professional than I ever was. And I have to say, the other servers were kind. They even tried to help me. They even offered to open bottles of wine for me at tableside just for that time. But I know they had to groan. When they looked at the schedule and they saw that I was on their shift, I know, they were groaning. Oh, man. But here's the crazy thing. I had returning guests request me as their server. It was crazy. I'm like, who would put themselves through the torture of my bad service? What in the world would happen? That was just crazy. So after some time, I got a call that as soon as I finished my shift, I had to go to human resources. I thought, that's it. I'm done, right? Somebody had to have complained something, right? But I actually was promoted to the sales office. And I have to say, that's where I had worked before in resorts, and that was in the sales office. Sometimes a sales manager, and sometimes, as in this case, I was a sales office manager. So I was in charge of giving tours and wining and dining the guests and just going out to trade shows. I'd fly everywhere doing the trade shows. But there was one job I wasn't familiar with. And that part of my task was to create a 3-month forecast. There was nobody there that knew how to do it. It was just something I had to learn on my own. And to my surprise, my forecast was 98% accurate. 3 times it came that way. It was like unbelievable because to me it was just like, well, it's a no-brainer. But I have to say, to my dismay, the resort's accountant complained that I was cheating on the forecast. Can anybody explain to me how can you cheat on a forecast? Because I never figured it out. I tried, but I never figured it out. So the next month, I had to sit down with the accountant and show what I do and demonstrate it. And what I did was I checked with reservations. What bookings do we have? And then I checked with sales and caterings. What bookings were there? Just to find out what weekends are we going to be sold out that we already know is a given. Then I called the Chamber of Commerce, asked what events were happening on Clearwater Beach, because there was a lot of events happening, right? There was things going on. Well, then I could estimate then, like, okay, we're going to be booked for these events that are happening. And then after that call, I started calling the different reservations office at the different other hotels, resorts that were on the beach as well. And I started to build up a friendship with those people. So we would give each other like, hey, we're going to be sold out these weekends here. So that kind of gave us a clue like, oh, if they're booked, we'll get their overflow. So we just built up this relationship. And then it was like, no brainer, right? You fill in the dots and you put in the numbers. The accountant didn't get it. He just looked at me. How do you do this? How did you figure it out? So yes, I was a people person. And through this forecast report, I was able to build relationships with the downtown Clearwater City Chamber there. But also, I was able to build relationships with other resorts, other employees. So my passion was helping customers. My passion was building relationships and ensuring that guests that came in received great service. But my gifts and passion were not in serving. Thank goodness for that restaurant. I got out of there, right? Because it was bad. So I share all of that. Yeah, I'd poke fun at myself. But to kind of get you thinking, what stirs your heart? You see, passion often points to where your purpose lies. So consider the issues, causes, or activities that ignite your enthusiasm. What makes you drive? What is it? Do you have a heart for social justice, teaching, mentoring, or just caring for the vulnerable? See, your passions can guide you to areas where you can be most effective, such as salt and light. So where do you feel called? See, sometimes passion is tied to a deep sense of calling or a burden that you're just feeling is just deep inside of you, that something needs to happen. So this could be a particular demographic, such as the youth or the elderly or the homeless, or a cause like environmental stewardship. Maybe it's mission. Pay attention. Pay attention to those stirrings. Pay attention to what is exciting you. And spend time asking, what do I care about deeply? What would I do even if I wasn't paid for it? What injustices or needs in the world do I feel compelled to address? And if you're still feeling lost about this whole purpose thing, look around you. You see, opportunities to live out your purpose are often closer than you think. They could be in your current job, within your family, within your church, and there's plenty to do in the church, let me tell you. But also, there's lots to do in our local community. So be open to seeing how God might just use you, where God is inviting you to find your gifts, your passions, especially in these contents. But beware. There's always a beware, right? Sometimes opportunities just don't happen overnight. Sometimes they don't even present themselves. So you might need to create them. And I mean this could involve starting a new ministry, initiating a community project, simply contacting someone in need. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to step out. If you get a no, so what? Wipe off the dust and move on to the next thing. What is it that goes on? But also I'm going to ask you, be attentive. Be attentive to the divine appointments. See, God places those unexpected moments where you can make a difference in your life. These could be chance encounters. It could be a new relationship or even a sudden need that aligns with your gifts and even your passions. And if you're still not clear, go to God. Ask God clearly. Reveal how and where you can use your gifts, your passions. Seek God's guidance in discerning your purpose. But you need to be open because you never know where God's going to lead you. Be open. Even if it takes you someplace you never thought you would ever be. So share your thoughts and reflections with trusted friends, mentors, even spiritual leaders. Often you see, others can see your gift. Have you ever had a friend say like, oh my gosh, you would make a great teacher leading a book study. Oh my gosh, you would be great at decorating. You have the most beautiful way to create things. What are those that people are saying to you? Because you see, your friends can provide confirmation, and they can also provide you with encouragement as you step into your purpose. So remember, be patient. Be patient through the process. Discover and living out your purpose is a journey. And one thing you need to remember about that, it's not a one-time event. It's a lifetime journey. But be patient with yourself. Be patient as you explore different avenues and allow God to shape you as you take the steps. So by considering the internal impact on your purpose, using the ideas of salt and light, know that you can influence, and your influence can lead to lasting change in people's lives, not just temporary, but eternally. So as we reflect on Jesus' words in today's gospel, we're reminded that our lives are meant to impact the world around us. So Jesus calls us to be the salt and the light of the world, and sometimes in roles that carry out great responsibility and tremendous purpose. But what does that living out this calling in everyday life look like? How can we use our gifts and passions and opportunities to make a difference, especially when our efforts seem so small or unnoticed? I want to share a story with you to maybe answer that question. And the story illustrates the importance of purpose and actually faithfulness. It's a story about an elderly lighthouse keeper named Samuel. And Samuel was dedicated in his perseverance to exemplify what it means to be light in darkness. In a small coastal town, there was an old lighthouse that was perched on a cliff overlooking a treacherous stretch of the ocean. The lighthouse had been there for generations, and it guided the ship safely to shore, especially in storms and in darkness. Samuel, the elderly lighthouse keeper, he had maintained that lighthouse for over 40 years. Samuel understood that his role was vital. Every evening, without fail, he climbed the steep stairs to the top of the lighthouse and ensuring that the lamp was filled with oil and that the lenses were clean. Samuel knew that ships would crash into the rocks below if the light went out, leading to disaster. Samuel's work seemed routine and unremarkable to the townspeople, but Samuel knew that his purpose was clear: to be the light that prevented tragedy. So one stormy night, this fierce hurricane approached the coast, and the wind howled and the waves crashed violently against the cliffs. And the power went out in the town, plunging everything into darkness. Despite the dangers, Samuel braved the storm and went to the lighthouse. And as he climbed the stairs, the wind threatened to blow out his lantern, but he pressed on, determined he was going to fulfill his duty. At the top, he found that the storm had damaged the lighthouse's mechanical system. The light would not turn on automatically. And with the town's electricity out, there was no backup power. Samuel realized that he would have to operate the light manually all night if necessary. And throughout the night, Samuel manually turned the crank that kept that light shining. He kept the beam sweeping across the dark, stormy waters, guiding ships away from the dangerous rocks. Exhausted, cold, wet, Samuel didn't give up. He knew the lives of the sailors depended on him. And as dawn broke, the storm finally subsided. And in the distance, Samuel could see a ship safely anchored in the harbor, having avoided the deadly rocks. The captain later came to town and shared that without the lighthouse's guiding light, they would have been lost for sure. So Samuel's story is powerful. It gives us this illustration of being the light of the world. And it was just as Jesus described it in our gospel. Samuel's purpose was to be the literal light, a light to guide others to safety. And just as Jesus calls believers to be spiritual lights in a dark world, even when no one else understood the significance of his work, Samuel knew his purpose and faithfully fulfilled it, even at a significant personal cost. So just like Samuel, our purpose is often about staying faithful to what God has called us to do, even when it's hard or others don't even see its value. We may not all be lighthouse keepers, but we are called to be the light in our own contexts, whether it's in our family, workplaces, communities, and even within our churches. So remember that living out your purpose isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's being quiet, faithful, and doing small acts of service, making small decisions, but yet shining your light, even when no one else notices. So I encourage you today, step out fully in your role as the salt and the light, and let God use your gifts, your passions, and to just transform you to go out to the world around you. So don't underestimate the power of your light, no matter how small that flame may look. And together, As we each fulfill our purpose, we can illuminate the darkness and bring love and truth of Christ to all who need it. Amen. Amen.